Last week I had to make a custom cell phone case for somebody, and I decided I was going to make a video about it. And when I got all the footage together after I got the cell phone case done and to the customer, I decided the real important part is not in making the case, which is a fairly simple case in a lot of ways. The actual problem is in making a pattern for a cell phone case, because cell phones are always changing. Manufacturers of leather goods and supplies and such are almost always making new patterns for them. And you don't find pattern packs and kits in your local leather store that are custom made specifically for certain phones, because it takes 6 months to a year to make a new kit, and by then that phone's old news and gone and another one's already come out. So my process always starts with making a leather block that's the size and shape of whatever phone the customer has. And to do that, I will either, if I meet them in person, I take a tracing around the phone and then a tracing of how thick it is, and then I've got length, width, thickness, and the corner radiuses. Or if I'm just talking to them over the phone, I'll just get the numbers from them of length and width and thickness and kind of guess at the corner radiuses. From there, I can use that block and make myself a paper pattern that I can use hopefully once or twice before I have to make a completely different one for the next cell phone. And let me show you exactly how I do that. Now, as I said before, this pattern starts with a leather block that is cut from just scraps of leather in the size and shape, well, basically the shape of the cell phone that I want to make the case for. And you can see that I drew 3 times on this piece of paper, kind of in a straight line from each other. I traced around this block, and then those are about the thickness of the cell phone plus the thickness of the leather that I'm planning on using apart from each other. And once I had that done, then I started adding on everything around it. I added on, in the middle here, this is going to be the back of the case. I added off to each side enough for the thickness of the leather, and then room to stitch it, about 3/8 of an inch or so, plus in this case I was going to use 6-ounce leather, so I added a little bit more in there on top of that on both sides. And this last one down here, I added the thickness of the phone on the outside, because this is the part that's actually going to fold down and then fold back out. And then I added enough to again be this amount that it's going to stitch onto. The holes punched here were for a rivet-on clip that's going to be part of the case. And these other holes, as I usually use snaps on this style of case, in this instance I wound up actually using magnetic bag clasps on it because that's what the customer wanted. But it's going to fold up like that around it. These are going to fold down and stitch. And one of the reasons that you use paper or poster board to try your patterns is so that you can make sure it's going to fit before you start cutting it out of leather. And then this becomes the flap that folds down over the outside. This hole here is so that the phone can be pushed up out of the case. And that is our basic cell phone case pattern. So once you've got all of that figured out and cut out, and you've tried it, and you've tested it, and you made sure that it's going to work, then you can go and start cutting pieces out of leather. The other aspect on this particular case is the customer wanted a pocket on it for business cards. So I made a small piece, basically just laid down a business card, drew around it, added about 1/4 to 3/8 of an inch all the way around 3 sides, and then kind of found something that was rounded to make a nice little curve here, and that's going to be the top of that pocket, and it's going to go on the front right between where the snaps are going to be.